So we're out here with the fifth wheel, getting ready to leave. We go ahead and lower the trailer. Got the feet off the ground. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put about 25, maybe 30 pounds in the bags. It's hard to tell, but it is raising up the truck slightly. It really doesn't need it, honestly. It sits pretty level. But the reason why I put some air in the bags for all you people who say I have a 450 and I don't need it for this specific trailer is simply because it helps cushion the ride a little bit. If I don't put air in the bags, what'll end up happening is if I hit a big bump, it's going to want to compress the spring all the way down to the bump stop. So having a little bit of air in the bags actually helps cushion that and prevent such a jarring ride if you go over some big highway expansion joints or when you get onto overpasses or bridges. So it's always a good idea to put a little bit of air in the bags. I'm not putting much, I only put 35 pounds, but it's definitely going to be enough to help keep the fifth wheel from compressing the spring all the way in the event I do go over a big bump. So this video is a follow-up to the video that I posted not too long ago on the issue we ran into when we went out to pick up our fifth wheel to go on a camping trip. When we got there, we thought everything was going to be fine. I backed up to the fifth wheel, and when I tried to operate the landing gear, I found out that the battery was dead, and I wasn't able to retract my landing gear once I got it hitched up to the truck. I had failed to turn off the battery disconnect, which essentially prevents you from what's called a parasitic drain, killing your battery, or any little items that are still connected, possibly draining the battery. In our case, the RV sat for about a month and a half with the battery turned on. I showed you the new charger and how it was able to save us in a pinch. Well, the problem is if I hadn't had that new charger, trying to connect my larger jump kit was really difficult because the terminals were too large and they wouldn't clamp onto the ends of the power block that I would have needed to charge it from. I would have ended up having to take the whole battery cover off, which would require unfastening several wing nuts and removing it, which would have just made the whole process take even longer. Thankfully, I had my new charger with me, which has much smaller clamps, which were able to fit onto the little screws that the battery connects to in the battery bay, and I was able to provide power to my system from there. Well, if I want to avoid having to remove the battery cover anytime the batteries go dead, or if I want to have to avoid having that new charger with me, or even just using the new charger in a more convenient fashion, I needed to come up with a solution. And this is a solution that's very affordable. Anybody with a coach, it can be a fifth wheel, it can be a class A, B, or C, it can be pretty much any type of RV that has a battery that needs to stay charged can benefit from this. If you have a motorhome, class A, B, or C, you really don't need to do this simply because your battery will more than likely have exposed terminals. It's not going to be in a box that's going to be enclosed, so you're not going to have to worry about it as much. But even in the case of some RVs, the batteries are in the back or they're in a concealed compartment and you don't have easy access to them, and you could benefit from this. Almost all fifth wheels and travel trailers will have a battery box that is closed, and this might be able to help you. So I'm going to show you what I did here and what I've done actually to several different applications when it comes to providing easier access to getting power to your battery or your charging system. So here are all the parts that you'll need. Basically, booster cables. I got 12-foot 8-gauge cable simply because that's essentially the cables that go from the battery to the RV already. I didn't need to go any larger than that, and these aren't specifically to jump anything. It's designed mainly to provide auxiliary power in the event that the house battery goes dead. And it's just your standard jumper cables. Secondly, I needed a battery power disconnect. So this is a quick disconnect kit. It comes with these little pieces here. You crimp your wires into them, they slide in here and fasten, and then these two ends connect like that, and you can just pull them apart. And this is really the key behind this entire solution, having these quick disconnects here. And then a couple of ring crimps. So these are going to be to connect to the chassis ground as well as the battery box or the power block that provides power to the coach. Now the first thing I need to do is take my cable and unspool about 5 feet. Doesn't have to be exact. Once you have about 5 feet unspooled, you're going to take your wire cutters, cut through them. Once I cut through them, I'm going to take the 5-foot end and I'm going to strip the shielding off of it. Okay. Go ahead and twist these down. Now the next thing I'm going to do is take a couple pieces of heat shrink, put that over the cable. Like so. Take my ring crimp, put it around here. Crimp that on. Take my second one, put it on my ground cable. Crimp that on. Take my heat shrink, feed it back up. I like to go a little further, like that. Okay, now I have a nice well-produced end. Now the next part is you're going to cut these clamps off. So I like to cut them about 4 inches down the line, and I do that only because if I ever want to reuse these clamps for anything else, it gives me enough room to cut and splice into them or solder into them. So I've cut those off. Now this side I am also going to need to strip down. I'm going to strip down probably 3/4 of an inch back. Okay. I'm also going to grab a couple pieces of heat shrink, put those around my ends. Okay. So now I'm going to take essentially one side of the quick disconnect and a couple of these little terminals, put it around the cable, and then crimp that down to it. I always like to hold the cables together like this and make sure the other one that I put on is pointed the same direction, only because you don't have to twist them and turn them to make them fit this quick disconnect if you make sure that they're both orientated the same. Okay, take my heat shrink, pull it up to right around there. And repeat with the other side. Okay, so that's what this side looks like. So now, the way these work is you're going to push them in so the hump is facing up. So this little hump right here is facing up, and you're looking at the name right here. And then you're going to put your red wire in the plus side and just press until it snaps into place. And then repeat with the black wire, your ground wire. There you go. So now I have the part that will be mounted to the RV. This will stay in the RV. This is going to go from my power block that feeds the coach from the battery, and this is simply going to be chassis grounded. So I'm going to drill this using a self-tapping screw directly into the chassis of the RV. This side is going to mount anywhere I want, really. I'm going to mount this specifically right inside the front hatch of the RV, so I have the ability to access it very quickly, and it'll be readily available right at the edge. Now let's start on the other half. So the reason why I wanted more length on this side is because these clamps will have to reach the jumper or whatever battery you're going to be providing power to your coach from as an auxiliary power source. And I wanted more slack here. The reason I cut the other ones down to 5 feet is because it gives me the flexibility of moving that half of the quick connect anywhere I need to put it, so it's kind of out of the way and I can still route it around anything that may be in there. So I'm taking the longer portion now. I'm going to leave these clamps on. I'm going to trim off the insulation, again about 3/4 of an inch. Again, I'm going to take these terminals here, I'm going to orientate it so the U is pointing up. I know I didn't put the heat shrink on first, but good thing is these terminals are pretty compact and you can just slide it over. Now the ground terminal. Again, a couple pieces of heat shrink. Okay, now that the heat shrink's on, I'm going to put the red terminal into the positive side and the black terminal into the negative side. Snap into place. Now, both terminal ends can quickly connect. They plug into place, and it gives me the ability to have this side connected to my coach and this side right here clamped to whatever jump start battery, whatever power supply, anything I need to connect these to give me temporary power to the RV so I can raise my landing gear or do whatever I need to do, pull my slides in, retract my slides. And this is a really good alternative, especially if you're in a bind. This is going to give you a way of getting power to your coach when you need it. And then when you're done, you simply disconnect your power disconnect here. This side, again, is going to be mounted to the coach itself. You take your extension cords here and put them in this nifty bag that they give you. They even give you a pair of gloves with it. Throw them in there. So these little ends right here simply snap onto the ends of your quick connect to keep dust, dirt, debris out. And on this side, from anything accidentally making contact to your positive terminal, which could, cause problems. So again, that's the whole setup. I'm going to stow these cables in this bag until I get out to the RV to finish the install. Now, if you want to know how much all this cost, you're going to be surprised. These quick connect terminals are only about $7, and you get one set that works with pretty much two sides of the cable. Comes with these ends as well. This 12-foot booster cable set was only about $15, so didn't pay much for this either. And I got the 8 gauge. Some people are going to want to go 6 gauge, some might want to go 4 gauge, and some may want to go 1 gauge. But 8 gauge is going to be fine for what I need, simply because I'm going to use it mainly as an auxiliary backup source to charging the system and not as a jumping system. You're not going to see the amp surge you would see as if you're trying to jump a car. Guys, I'll put the Amazon link in the description of this video to both the booster cables as well as the quick disconnects. I chose to do the heat shrink as well as the different terminals. You guys may choose to connect them a different way than I did. You can get heat shrink in little packages like this, really cheap, and a little butane torch like this really comes in handy with them instead of using a heat gun. Anyways, guys, if you like my videos, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up. I love doing these types of videos for you guys, and tune in next time, and we'll probably have another project. Thanks, everyone.